Hello and welcome to Rolling Out Health IQ. My name is Portia Monique, and today we have some very special guests with us, breast cancer survivors, Miss Megan Claire Chase and Miss Sheila Marie Johnson. I'll give you both a chance to introduce yourselves, and then we'll go right into your story. We'll start with you, Sheila.
Oh, hi. Thank you for having me today. My name is Sheila, and I am a 25-year Air Force veteran. I'm also a 13-year metastatic breast cancer survivor patient living with metastatic breast cancer, whatever we calling ourselves today. But yeah, and I'm a patient advocate and a consultant, and just trying to make sure that health equity is distributed across all cultures, especially the Black community.
I love that. Thank you so much, Sheila. Megan Claire Chase.
Hello. Yes, Megan Claire Chase. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm also known in Cancerland as Warrior Mugsy. And I am a 7-year stage 2A invasive lobular breast cancer survivor. And my cat is my child, Nathan Edgar. I always give him a little shout out. And I am known in the cancer space as an advocate, as a writer, influencer, if you will. And I also work in the cancer space too.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for sharing, and welcome both of you to the show. Now, as we all know, October starts Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And so we're dedicating our Health IQ series to Breast Cancer Awareness Month this month. And you guys are our second episode. But I want to briefly start with your story, right? So I did get a chance to hear some of your story via the podcast that is titled Rebuilding After Cancer, Stories from the Stage, the podcast. But I want you guys to kind of briefly walk us through each of your journeys and let us know how you found out about your cancer diagnosis. What were the first signs? Talk about symptoms, and then we'll go into survival rate, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll start with you, Sheila.
Well, I found out I had breast cancer through a sneeze. One day I was sitting at my desk and I sneezed and it burned. And I'm like, that's weird. So maybe like a week later, it burned again. And I'm like, So I see my military doctor and I said, well, every time I sneeze, it burns, but it feels like my breast. My mom had died when I was 38 of metastatic breast cancer that spread to her lungs. And 5 years later, I received the diagnosis. She died in 2004, and I received my diagnosis in 2009. So I went to my military doctor and I was just like, something doesn't feel right. And I said, I think I need a mammogram. And I had been getting mammograms. So she did a mammogram maybe like a week or 2 weeks later. And when she did the mammogram, the technician came in, she said, I need you to sit down. The military never says that. They always say, well, it's in your letter if something's wrong. But no, she said, sit down. And the radiologist pulled me in and he said, you see your right breast? That's all breast cancer. And through further testing, they found out that it has spread to my liver and ribs. And what I was feeling was the cancer was pressing up against my ribs. That's why when I sneezed, it hurt. So I've been on this journey for 13 years, different medications. I actually just found out Friday that I have another progression. The cancer fractured my neck and it fractured my shoulder. So I have to start radiation. I've never done radiation before. You just keep going, So yeah, like I said, 13 years of chemo. I'll never be able to get off chemo because it's keeping me alive. And I've had so many different chemos, but I have a great medical team. Before I even got to the office on Monday, they already had my regimen, my treatment plan in place. So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I'm so sorry for your loss and your mom and your treatment, and hearing that the cancer came back, right? That made me emotional, just hearing that right now. So I'm so sorry that we even have to go through this, right? Especially as Black women, because it really attacks us just in a disproportionate manner as compared to our other counterparts, right? I'll just
Yeah.
say other to encompass them all. But yes, thank you so much for sharing. And
Thank you.
Mexi, let's talk about your journey as well. So briefly walk us through how you found out, and then, the steps that you took to make sure that you are now a 7-year survivor.
Right. So I knew something was wrong for about 2.5 years, but breast cancer. So my mother is an ovarian cancer survivor, and there is a link between breast and ovarian cancer. She had ovarian when she was pregnant with me. So I'm like the miracle child. So growing up, I've always had a lot of health issues, and I was on the path of, like, I knew ovarian or cervical cancer was in my future. I never thought breast. And I remember, because of that breast and ovarian tie, I was able to get a mammogram at 35. And they said, hey, you're clear, come back when you're 40. I was like, oh, all right. Well, I think about maybe 6 months or so after that mammogram, I started gaining a lot of weight. And for someone who grew up studying ballet, musical theater, I was a cheerleader in college, like I was very fit and active, and I was exhausted all the time. My hair, which used to be my pride and joy, this is all from chemo. I never had curly hair pre-cancer. I had straight, thick hair to my shoulders, and it started falling out on the left side. So I had very strange symptoms. When my hair started falling out, I really started freaking out. And it was my stylist. She was like, are you missing a nutrient? Like, what's going on with your hair? She'd been doing my hair for like 13 years up to that point. Mm-hmm. And so I've always just known what's normal for my body. And I knew something was wrong. And I just kept pushing. I got these tiny green bruises on my lower left leg. And so, of course, I'm thinking, oh, my God, it's leukemia. Just because I'm so weird, because I come from a very cancerous family. Mm-hmm. And they were like, no, you're anemic, but not enough for that. And I'm like, well, something's wrong. And they just kept telling me over and over again, just lose weight, eat better, and get more sleep. And I'm just like, no, something's not right. And this kept happening for over like a 2-year period of me constantly going to the doctor with weird symptoms. And then when I got like a circular green bruise on the back of my left arm, by this point, my primary is like, I don't know what your body's trying to tell us. If that's still there in 2 weeks, I'm going to have to talk with some colleagues, right? So the way I discovered my cancer was in the shower. I was a huge Supergirl fan. And I was all excited because I was like, yeah, I'm going to get my jammies. I was really excited about that particular episode. I don't know why. But because of the weight gain, my breasts had gotten bigger. So I was always feeling them. And I'm telling you, it was not there that morning. And and all of a sudden I'm feeling my breast. And I was like, what's this? It was like as hard as a fist, and it was huge. And it was like that. And I was like, where did that come from? No pain, nothing. And then it was literally, I called the next day. And the scheduler was like, well, you already have an appointment in 2 weeks. And this is where I like to say it's your patient right to get pushy. And I was like, I need to speak to someone. I need to speak to our nurse or the PA or something, because I feel something. And finally, I get the doctor on the phone, and she was like, okay, I've written an order for you to get a diagnostic mammogram. And I was like, what is, I'm hearing these new words. I'm like, what is that? But I still didn't think breast cancer. And then ultimately, once I had the biopsy, and then I get the cancer call invasive lobular breast cancer, which is rare in women, in Black women.
Okay, let's stay there for a second, because invasive lobular breast cancer, what is that? How is that different from metastatic breast cancer? And what's the survival rate of it? Of course, you're 7 years in, but what's the survival rate of that as well?
So for invasive lobular, only about 10 to 15% of women get it. And that's just as a whole. There's not much research on Black women with invasive lobular. That's the issue. And it's known as the sneaky cancer, because it was obviously growing in me when I had that mammogram at 35. And it was missed because it can mask and look like healthy tissue. So that's why it's so important to know what your breasts feel like, and when you feel something, you act on it. But the survival rate, actually, new studies are showing that the further we get out for lobular, and I'm only talking about lobular, it's actually being shown right now in some research that after the 10-year mark is potential recurrence or potential metastasis might occur. So I actually get more freaked out the further I am, and there's still not enough research of Black women included in the current research right now.
Yeah, I was HER2 positive, ERPR positive, which means that the cancer fed off of my estrogen. So it's estrogen positive, estrogen receptor positive. So the first thing they did for me was take my ovary. I was 43 years old when I was diagnosed, and I had a daughter, but it was just something that even if I did want to have more kids, it was just like, we got to take your ovaries. So I have been on estrogen blockers for many years because they didn't want me producing any estrogen. And it's a gene, and the medicine that I get, what it does is it destroys the HER2 gene. Well, hopefully, that's the goal of it, is to destroy the HER2 gene from mutating.
And go ahead.
And metastatic has really nothing to do with the subtype, because there are subtypes of breast cancer, and there are many subtypes. But metastatic means stage 4, which means that it had hit a major organ, and my major organ was my liver. That's consider it stage 4.
Now, in terms of survival rate, do you happen to know the survival rate of yours? Of course, you've been living with it for 13 years. Let's talk about survival rate for a minute.
She's a different stage. She was stage 2.
Okay.
Stage 4.
You're still stage 4.
Yeah, stage 4, which also means metastatic.
So once you get into stage 4, can you get out of stage 4, or are you in it forever?
You're in it forever, unless one day they find a cure, or you're just on medicine for the rest of your life. But yeah, statistically, it's 3 to 5 years, and they told me 3 to 5 years. After 5 years, you'll probably be dead. But because of great research and, my faith in God, and the great family and support that I have around me and my medical team, I'm still here. So, I looked at my doctor and I just said, I'm gonna be a miracle patient, and I'm gonna fight like heck, so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But as I said, my mom, she only lived with it for 3 years. And I just wish, she would have had or I would have known more about breast cancer, because I didn't even think Black women got breast cancer. Because you look at the commercials back then, you didn't see any Black women on there.
Not representative, right?
I just thought only white women with over 65 could get breast cancer. I didn't know. And I'm 43 years old. My mom was like 65, and I'm like, breast cancer. So yeah, it's a lot I have to learn.
Now, I want to also talk about the importance of self-examinations, right? So, Mexie, you said you felt yours in the shower and you were familiar with your breast. I know some of the women that I do speak with, they say that, they hadn't done self-examinations. They weren't that in tune with your body, but of course you were, because you had a cancer history. But both of you, let's talk about the importance of ensuring we do self-breast examinations, and then how often should we do those as well? And I'll start with you, Mexie.
Well, they should be done, honestly, monthly, or, really even more than that sometimes, and in the shower, and there, certain ways to do it. But what I will say is, first, get to know your breast, because some women may just have naturally lumpy breasts. So it's kind of figuring out, okay, do I have dense breasts? Do I have more lumpy breasts? What does that mean? And then if you are even large chested, you really got to make sure that you're getting in there to feel around what feels normal, for you. And then something I like to tell Black women specifically is your sign or your symptom might be different from our other counterparts, because Black people are just built different.
Mm-hmm.
And we may not always show the typical signs of breast cancer.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Sheila?
I would say I didn't feel a lump. I didn't have a lump. And my doctor, she was asking me, she said, well, how many times were you doing self breast exam? And I said, once a month or maybe 2 or 3. And she said, no. She said, you only need to do them once because you will forget what normal feels like if you feel on them too much.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, maybe you did that. But when she felt it, she said, I don't feel anything neither. So I would say, do your breast exams once a month and know what your normal feels like. And also a fun fact, 50% of women who find out they have breast cancer, the significant other finds it first. And that's because they know what their significant other breast feels like.
They know what they feel like.
You have to be attuned to your body at all times. And, that's what I preach to my daughter and women is like, be attuned to any ache, any pus, even on your lymph nodes right here. If you feel something abnormal, immediately call your doctor and advocate for yourself that you're not too young for breast cancer.
And that's a perfect I'm sorry, Sheila, that's a perfect segue into advocating for yourselves, right? So as Black women as a whole, people don't necessarily receive us as, people who might need gender that might need help, and so a lot of the time I'm trying to tiptoe around it, right? But a lot of the times we have to find ourselves fighting for ourselves, pushing for ourselves, asking additional questions, not taking their dismissal for an answer. Let's talk about the importance of advocating for yourselves, especially in that doctor's office, right? What can women do to ensure that they are being heard? Maxie, we'll go with you because I did hear your story. You said you walked in the office with a list of things that were ailing you and they still told you, no, it's in your imagination.
Yep. And I just kept pushing. And so that's the thing. It's exhausting. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, right? Because we already deal with so much. But at the end of the day, like, it's our health. And it's like, I will demand to be heard. But also, you're very vulnerable when you're sitting on that exam table in that dressing gown, once you start having symptoms or what have you. And then once you even get diagnosed, it's very hard sometimes to speak up. Like, I'm a very vocal person, but I found it hard to speak up in the moment because you're hearing all of this new terminology. You may not even fully know how to express what you're feeling. And so what I like to tell people, in fact, an article that I wrote about the layers of advocacy, it was just published on Everyday Health. And it's actually talking about, writing out what you need, bringing someone with you, because sometimes you will hear and just get stuck on one word. Like when I heard I needed 16 rounds of chemo and didn't want to freeze my eggs, all I heard was the chemo part. I wasn't even focused on anything else. Mm-hmm. And I was 39 when I got diagnosed. It was 2 months after my 39th birthday. But I come in with a list. And because now doctors are pressed for time, right? Until you actually get a diagnosis. So think about like your top 5 questions, and like the top 3 are like, you're not leaving until you get answers on those top 3. And then if you're like, okay, I can wait on this, or say, can you send the nurse back in? I still have some other questions if they have to go, or write it in your portal, because that's also important too. Because there are just many different ways. And I want to make sure that we say it's okay if you can't speak up in the moment, because it can be overwhelming.
Yeah. Okay. And Sheila, how do women go about advocating for themselves, especially in the doctor's office?
I think that we as women know our bodies. And I think actually studies have shown now that from ages 30 to 39, there's an increase in breast cancer in young women. So the excuse, well, you're too young for breast cancer, we need to stop that.
Mhm.
But if you feel something is wrong, okay, second opinion, third opinion, until you get the answer that you want.
Yeah.
And many times you don't even know, we supposed to walk in and trust our doctors, I'm not, you know, and sometimes we just don't get the answer. So my advice is, if something is wrong, go see another doctor. Go see another doctor until you get the answers, especially about, breast cancer or any type of cancer. But be an advocate for yourself. I always say, like Mexie was saying, record your conversation with your doctor, because you go in there and you're like she said, she forgot. And you don't know what question, you literally don't know what questions to ask. Because I didn't know there were different types of subtypes of breast. What is that?
Right.
I didn't even know there were 4 stages of breast cancer. My mom had died because I just blocked it out.
Yeah.
So just advocate for yourself, and your body, your breasts, when something hurts. Even if, like I said, pus coming out your nipple, anything, go and see your doctor. And a lot of times I hear women say, well, I don't want to go because they're going to smash my boobs. It's like, it's only 2 or 3 seconds. Well, I don't want to go because of the radiation. It's just excuses. Like, go in, get it done. That way you're okay.
Yeah.
I've had women 50, 56 years old to say that never had a mammogram.
Wow.
But right now, that is the only tool that we have to detect breast cancer. And ourselves, our self-breast exam. So I say, continue to advocate for yourself, and the best health for yourself is so important. I was just telling a nurse in the emergency room, I said, nobody should have to go through breast cancer like this. Like, it was terrible Friday. I was looking at her, and I just said, nobody should have to go through this evil.
Right. And so I want to stay there for a second, Sheila. Let's talk about that diagnosis in the doctor's office, right? So on Friday, you just learned that the cancer had returned. But when it came to your initial diagnosis and you went for your exam and they came back and they told you, and you were in that room, what are some things that women can do to arm themselves with knowing how to react, right? So I'll give you an example. I went for my breast exam and I regularly go, my mammogram. I regularly go, and my routine is go, they're gonna do the mammogram. They're gonna tell you got breast dense tissue, because I do. They're gonna tell you to come back for some additional imaging, and then they send you home. The last time I went, which was this year, I went, same routine, same process, go in, do the initial, come back, additional imaging. And then after the additional imaging, I made a point to myself. I said, I need somebody to go with me. I already felt that I did, right? But I didn't. So I go to the exam room and for the additional imaging, and they said, go wait in the lobby, go wait in the waiting room. And I was like, who she talking to? Like, I literally freaked out, because I'm like, that's not the process. Why would you tell me to go wait in the waiting room? Because somebody help me, Lord Jesus. And that was the longest 10 minutes of my time where I had to wait to go get further additional imaging. And even in that process, just waiting for the nurse to come back to give me some type of news, because, the doctor, at first the doctor didn't see it. And so the initial thing that you came in for, they didn't see, but now we saw something else. So just sit tight. And either I'll come back and talk to you as a nurse, or the doctor will come in. So I'm sitting and waiting. And I was hoping and praying that the doctor didn't come in, because if the doctor came in for me, I knew that there was going to be something wrong. Right. So let's talk about that initial discovery, right? That initial time where the doctor said you have cancer. What did you do? And looking back on it, what can you say that you would do differently so that to help other women arm themselves with information and knowledge that they would need going in?
I would say, first, I seen a military doctor, and military hospitals don't have oncologists. So I had to immediately go down to Siteman Cancer Center in St. Louis, Missouri. I didn't know what an oncologist was. I'm like, well, what's an oncologist? It's a cancer doctor. I'm like, oh, shoot. But the first person they sent me to was a breast surgeon. And she said, there's nothing I can do because the breast cancer is already in your bloodstream. So stage 4, they don't want to give you a mammogram. I mean, not mammogram, but a mastectomy. So she sent me straight over to my doctor, which I love. We've been together for 13 years. She treated me as a human. She treated me, I brag about her all the time on Twitter. She just treated me like I was a person, like I was her only patient. And not all Black patients get that. And I do advocate for other patients. And I want them to see what a good doctor feels like and a good doctor that understands you. But I literally had to navigate like everything. And I wouldn't say I wouldn't change a thing because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know how to feel. You don't know whether to run down the hallway screaming. You just don't know how to breathe. You're like numb. I'm 43 years old with I had just bought a house. You told me I got stage 4 breast cancer. And what am I supposed to do with that? And I thought, like with my mom, okay, they're gonna give me chemo. I'm gonna be done. And she was like, no, you're gonna take some chemo, but it's gonna be for the rest of your life. So I would say you just don't know. But the one thing that is important that would drive your treatments is to know it by heart, what type of subtype of breast cancer you have and what type you have, because that would drive your treatment, and your stages would drive your treatment as well. So just make sure you know that, and ask the doctor the side effects, when will I have to have scans? Different stages, of course, require different things. I have to have scans every 3 months to make sure the medicine is working, make sure your appointments are aligned with your job. Will I have to work? How, because some people can't work on chemo, after a while, I was just like, I can't work and do this because I'm puking everywhere. So it's just, you don't know what questions to ask because you're in a blank. You're just like
shocked.
Deer in headlights.
Yeah.
But after time goes on, now I advise everybody to keep a journal of your side effects so you can tell your doctor, because it's all kind of medicines to fix side effects. And just keep a journal of any questions. You might leave the doctor's office like, oh man, I forgot to ask that. Well, your next visit, you can ask it, and keep a journal of how you feeling that day, whether it's the sky is blue today, I felt really good, or I took a walk down the street and came back, because it's so therapeutic. So.
Okay, and Maxie, what about you? What was it like hearing that diagnosis for the first time? What did you do? And if there's anything that you would do differently, what would that be?
Well, I got the cancer call while I was at work. So when I had my biopsy, it happened to fall on 9/11/2015, and that was a Friday when I had the biopsy, and I was the last one of the day, and I purposely had scheduled it late because I was like, I didn't want to have to go back to work and just go home. And they were like, okay. I said, well, when will I get the results? They're like, probably Tuesday or Wednesday. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I go into work on Monday, not thinking about it. And at the time I used to work in media. I was working at iHeart and iHeartRadio, and I just listened to a commercial, and I was so annoyed because I was like, oh, it's too long. Like, didn't I tell these people? And then my phone rang, and I'm always aware of the time because of that. And I was like, 3:05 p.m. And I was like, I don't know who that is. You're like, I don't know who that is. But my gut, which I feel was God saying, pick up the phone. And so I'm like, hello. And it was my doctor. And she goes, Megan Claire. And as soon as she said my name, I was like, wait. And I went running down the hall. And, that was back when I could run and stuff. And I went to an empty conference room. And she was like, you have invasive lobular breast cancer. We don't know the stage yet. And I was like, and just like tell Sheila, I was like, wait, I have what? Because all you ever hear is just breast cancer. You don't hear about these multiple subtypes. And I was like, and I started to get hysterical. And she was great because she goes, Megan Claire, I need you to get a pen and paper right now. I was like, okay, like she like snapped me back. So because I'm very dramatic, people are like, what are you doing? Because, you know, when I'm running, it's not just like a graceful run. I'm like, you know, and then I come back. But I realized something in hindsight where this was a good thing. She had already spoken with my primary. So she was able to give me already. She was like, look, for your particular type of cancer, here are the top 2 oncologists we recommend. Here is the plastic surgeon we recommend, because I was diagnosed under 40 and I was in another underrepresented category of already being Black, right? Then you're being Black and then you're under 40, AYA, adolescent and young adult category. And then my breast cancer surgeon. And I remember thinking, what do I need a plastic surgeon for? Like nothing was computing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was after that moment, I immediately called my mother, and my mother, she is still here, but she now has a rare blood cancer. It's very weird. We were both treated at the same place. So that was the odd mother-daughter bonding. But I called her and she was like, okay, call those doctors, then you call me back. So I was just like okay. But it was hard finding this out at work because of course I come back, it's written all over my face that something is terribly wrong. And I did not want to tell people in that moment, but that's what happened, was like, yeah, I got cancer, y'all.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And you know, Black women are told differently than white women.
How so?
Like she said, white women might get a phone call and within a couple of days, where Black women, it takes longer and might get an email. Statistically, they've shown that. So
That's terrible.
we're always, I
There's
don't know.
so much that we've learned from other
really
Black
is.
women, right?
Right. So it is. And so that's one of the reasons why we do platforms like this, and we have series like this where we can talk to our community and let them know the ins and outs of especially with Health IQ, what's going on with health, right? So I do know that there are a couple of other things that both of you are working on respectively, right? So congratulations are in order to Sheila. Sheila has a film coming out on Lifetime. I believe is it BET Plus?
Plus, yep.
Sheila has a film coming out on BET Plus. Apologies.
That's okay.
We're gonna have to edit that out. So I'm gonna start over.
That's okay.
Okay. So congratulations are in order for Sheila. She has a film coming out on BET Plus on October 19th, and it's titled God's Grace, the Sheila Johnson Story. Tell us more about it and how can we get involved pre-October 19th?
Well, about 2.5 years ago, I was approached on Instagram by a movie producer. And he said, I want to do a story on Black breast cancer. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what's your name and what production company? So while he's talking, I'm Googling, like, I'm like, is this a scam?
Right.
So he didn't ask for no money. So, and I was like, this is real. Mm-hmm. So like for a year, maybe about like a year and a half, he was like, I haven't forgotten about you. You know, I got other movies that I'm working on, but we haven't forgotten about you. So this year it finally came to fruit, finally came alive. And they started filming in April. It has Demetria McKinley, as she's playing me. Michael Beach is playing my father. Amber Rain is playing my daughter. Dr. Contessa from Married to Medicine is playing my doctor. And it's just hot. It's Devon Franklin. He's playing my little love interest.
Okay. Yeah. That's a nice little love interest, though.
Sure is. So they brought me on set for one day in April, and I got to see like the filming and the different things that go on. It was exciting. Mm-hmm. So as you're watching it new, I'm watching it new as well. I read the script, right? I read the script, so I know what the script looks like, but it's a difference between the script and, actually seeing it in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just can't, I say it was all God,
Yeah.
and the premiere is in Atlanta, Douglasville, Atlanta on October 19th.
But congratulations to you on that. We definitely will be watching. The trailer came out, right?
Yep,
Trailer
today.
came out today. And so we'll make sure that we get that on our site as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And Mexi, so you also blog. Tell us about your blog. A Survivor's Lens? I'm sorry. What is the name of your blog?
No, Life on the Cancer Train.
Life on the Cancer Train. Yes. So tell us more about your blog.
I just want to first again shout out to Sheila, like a whole movie about you, like how amazing, because something I have found in this cancer space, especially for Black women within this breast cancer space, it's not that many of us who speak up and out a lot. And we all, it's sad that it's so small, but it's like uplift. And I just have to just tell you, I'm so like happy and proud of you. And I just know your mom is just looking down from heaven being like, that's my girl.
Thank you. I always say when one wins, we all win.
You know?
Everybody else is winning too, because we're going to knock this out the park.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
But thank you
I'm
so
sure.
much. I appreciate it. Coming from somebody like you now, superstar now. Don't play.
I got a couple of superstars.
Don't play now. Don't,
I love it.
You have a whole podcast.
A whole podcast.
Affecting
Yes.
many people. So.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes. I never thought to start a blog before, even though my degree is in communications and I have like 10 million journals. I don't know what. But it was just one day, it was about 6 months after I had entered the quote unquote survivorship stage, and it hit me, this isn't really over. Like they said I might feel a little depression. Yeah. What? And so as a talker, I wasn't able to verbalize myself because I was so emotional and I was trying to just process everything. And it was very hard. I did not have the greatest insurance. Even though I had a good job, I did not have good insurance. And I worked throughout my entire treatment and surgeries. I only took about 6 weeks and that's it. And I had 5 months of chemo. I've had multiple surgeries, but 3 initially, and then 33 rounds of radiation. And I'm working through all of that. And it was just a lot to process. So I was like, I'm going to start a blog to hold myself accountable and to engage my mental health. And it just started to take off because I noticed that no one's talking about the rage, the frustration, the grief, the irritability, the feeling of out of control. No one was really talking about that because all you ever see are smiles and walks and high fives. And I was like, is no one else like angry? So I think why my blog started to resonate with not only women, but men and those in the LGBTQIA community too, which is amazing. Because I was talking about the hard stuff, the raw stuff, yes, there's gratitude, but I have a right to be angry and sit with that for a little bit and process it. And that's how I became known in the cancer space, was through my writing. And then from there, it's just been more and more amazing opportunities to also work in the research space. Been a consumer reviewer for the Department of Defense Breast Cancer Research Program. Like if you had told me I would be like reading abstract proposals and writing reviews as someone who I'm very theatrical and all that, I would have laughed in your face, but I'm like, hey, this makes sense. And I'm getting invited to tables and rooms that normally I'm the only one that looks like me in there. And it's an enormous pressure sometimes, but I'm like, we have to make sure that they are keeping us in mind, because the way the mutations in our bodies are very different than our other counterparts, and making sure that we are not forgotten. And that's really how I became like Warrior Megzy. I always have something in my hair. It's like my trademark because my hair came back curly. So it's like, I didn't just make lemons into lemonade. I made it into a lemon martini, but it was more of this. I experienced so many barriers in my own journey, and I really hate that word journey, maybe path. And I thought to myself, hey, I'm educated. I'm pretty darn verbal here. And I had a hard time too. I can't imagine if like I didn't have that education, or there was a language barrier, or then when you're constantly told you're too young to get this test and insurance won't cover it. So I really just started talking more about that and just shining a spotlight on these, many, many barriers and how we can try and topple them down.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to both of you being advocates of this terrible disease and, living with it, overcoming, fighting. And in your case, Sheila, about to start the fight again, right? So we all know that we will be praying for you. Absolutely. And we'll also be watching your film that's coming out October 19th. And then Megzy, of course, we're going to look out for your podcast as well. Tell us, where can we find more information on each of you respectively? So Sheila, we'll start with you first.
I have a website, www.asurvivorslens.com. I'm on Facebook, Sheila Marie Johnson. I'm on Instagram, Sheila_Marie_Johnson. And I'm on LinkedIn as Sheila Marie Johnson. Is that all? I'm on Twitter. I love Twitter. I know it's complex, but I'm still calling it Twitter. I love it.
Twitter.
You type one question in there and you're gonna get a flood of answers. Right?
It's amazing. There's a huge cancer space in I call it Twix. I call it Twixer.
So many people want to help you and encourage you.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. But on X is Swag Sheila, SWAGG Sheila, SHEILA.
I'll be sure to follow you on all of those platforms.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And Megzy, what about you? How can we get in touch with you, follow your journey?
Right. So I am Megzy Chase on Facebook. I am Warrior Megzy on both Twitter and Twitter X and Instagram. And on LinkedIn, Megan Claire Chase, and my website is www.warriormegzy.com, and it's there where you can see where I've been published and the different podcasts I host and the whole plethora of things I do, as well as a budding voiceover actor also, because at the end of the day, it cannot take away the essence of you.
At all, period. Ladies, continue to fight on. We will be watching you and cheering you on from the sidelines, praying for you and making sure that we're following your journey. We appreciate you coming on Rolling Out Health IQ. Again, I'm your host, Portia Monique, and thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Take care. All right.